in this video, we'll be currently starting our work with weather microservice. In weather microservice, we will be feeding latitude and longitude, and it will be returning weather of that particular location. And in the backend of this microservice, it will be using some third-party weather API service. So why we are making our own weather microservice if we have to use the other third-party provider? That is because if as a enterprise, if you want to switch to some other provider sometime later, then you could easily do that if you have the settings, and your front-end implementation would remain the same. And the same, since we don't want to always feed in latitude and longitude, same way we will be making another microservice called geocoder microservice. So in this case, we will be feeding the address in string format, and it will be returning latitude and longitude, which can be then fed into the weather microservice to get the weather of that particular location. So this will be our agenda for this video, and in subsequent parts we will be configuring our Eureka naming server and also API gateway. So without any further ado, let's get started. So first we will start with our weather microservice. So in this case, I prefer using Spring Toolsuite. Feel free to use Spring Initializer if you use IntelliJ or Eclipse. So create new Spring starter project. Name would be home.robomap. Artifact ID will be weather microservice. Weather. So first we will be needing, since we want to expose REST API, we'll be needing Spring Web and also dev tools, because it makes it easy to restarting and all. It gets very easier for using this. And next, finish. So now it is fetching the schema from the Spring server, and now here we have everything ready. So if you are using it for the first time, it may take some time for Maven to pull the repositories, to pull the jars. Once this is done, here we have the package. Yeah, so let's just quickly rename this. So let's try if it is working or not. Before that, let me create one new controller class. So new package would be weather.controller. Weather controller. So this will be REST controller. So please make sure that you are not using @controller here, because that is very common mistake. So we will be just testing if our microservice is getting up or not. Let get mapping, and it will be mapped to the root URL. Not root, let's make it test. Now we can save this and we can start our Spring Boot server. Since we have not configured any port yet, so it is being hosted on default port 8080. So here we are, localhost 8080, and what was the root URL? It was /test. So our microservice is working. Now we can start working on get weather. So First, first let me show you how to just configure the third-party API. So here we are using openweathermap.org. This is a very good open source weather API. Once you log in into this, you can click on API. In API, you can use current weather API, and after that, you can create. You go to My API keys, and in My API keys, you can create your API. So I have created one new private key. Now we are going to test it. Before that, the format of the API is like this. So we first test it in the Postman. Like you can see, I have already done that. So I'll send the request, and you can see I am getting the response back. So basically, we want to store this. We want to fetch this data in our microservice. So we can see here we have coordinate. In coordinate, we are having. So first, let's copy this. Yeah. So first, we will be creating one entity class. So this would be the response. The package would be weather dot say model. So this is the response. So first thing is the coordinate. So private coordinate and coordinate. We will be creating these classes. Just now let's first prepare the basic structure. Then we have weather and weather. Then we have main. So private. So we don't want everything. We just want coordinate, weather and main. So in main we have main like this. Once this is done, now let's create this coordinate class in the model only. Okay, so in coordinate class, you can see that we have longitude and latitude. So let's create it like that. Private double lon private double lat. So once this is done, now we can remove this and we can create the getters and setters. So we want getter and setter for latitude and longitude both. Great. Let's format this. So our coordinate is done. Save this. Similarly, now we have to create weather class. To weather. So in weather we will be needing ID, and let's not think about this. We just need three things: ID, description and icon. Okay, let's remove icon as well. So only thing we need is ID and description. So private, looks like ID would be in long. So ID, private, string, description. Yeah. Okay. So now let's create getter and setter as well. Yeah. So once weather class is done, now we have to create main class. So in main, what do we need? We need temp, private double temp, private double feels like same thing here. Yeah, let's format this. This is formatted. We have to create getters and setters for this as well. Select all. Okay, let's shift it upwards. Here. Yeah, so now everything is formatted properly. So you can see now response is ready. Now we can. So one more thing I want you guys to notice is that the weather is here. Yeah, the weather is actually. Let me show you in a bigger screen. As you can see, the weather is actually an array. So we have just created a weather like this. So we now need to. So we need to expect weather as an array. So we can do it here. Now once this is done, now we can create the getters and setters for this. If you're not able to follow properly, don't worry. We will be explaining everything in detail when once this starts working. So now everything is properly set up. Now we have to test this. So public, what was the so it was the response which just wraps up everything. So public response, make sure that you use your custom response, not some library response, and then get weather maybe. Yeah, for now let's hardcode this to, yeah, just make it get mapping, get weather. Now we have to create new rest, because so now we have created this thing. Now is the time to send the request to our third party. So how we are going to do that is we are going to use something called REST template. Now once REST template is there, get for entity. Since we are sending get request, if we want to send post request, sorry, post for entity you can use, but now it is get request. Get for entity. Get for entity, the URL would be URL which we talked about. Now since this is HTTPS, don't forget to add that. Now we need to provide the wrapper class, like the response would be mapped to which class. So it has to be mapped to response dot class. So this way the JSON system would be converting the response into a response format. So now let's assign it to new variable. Let's make it response. Once this is done, now we can return response dot, sorry, not response, this response dot get body. Now fingers crossed, and let's see if it works or not. Now see, we have just saved this, and fully this should work. It was get weather. See, now you can see we are getting the value. Now you can see the coordinate is null. Why coordinate is null? Okay, coordinate is null. Okay, so here you can see the name is code, and here in our system we have mapped it as coordinate. So the the JSON converter is not able to actually map it to the value, because there is nothing like core. So there is one thing that you can just convert this class to COR, but that is not a good practice. So because you just need to according to your convenience. So we can use something called JSON property, and in JSON property we can map this property to the something from the response, and it was core B, I think. Yeah, let's check that. not this one. Yeah, so it was COORD. Now let's save this. So once this is saved, as you can see, the Spring Boot started restart automatically. That is because of the dev tools here, which we added in the repository. So now let's see if this works or not. Now I can see the coordinate is working. Congratulations, we have successfully created our weather microservice. Now we'll be okay. Let me first explain you in a much more concise way so that it's easy to understand everything. So what we are doing is first we created our new class response. So response, what it does is actually wraps about everything which we'll be expecting in our response from our third-party API. So that response contains coordinate, weather, and main. The same thing which we get from the our third-party API. Everything. Once this is done, we can just use some feature like which is in the web client REST template, which is REST template. And using get for entity, we first send in the address to which we have to hit the API and the response and the class to which we want to map this to. So in this case, it is response which we created. So once this is done, the Spring would automatically convert the response into our Java object. And using that object.getBody, we can send in the response and we can use it however we want. So once this is done, now we can see that here we don't have like the latitude and longitudes are hard coded. So now we have to make it much more useful. Do things like this. Like this, it would be lat, it would be long. Lat long. Now we can, here we have to mention what we are using at path variable lat, which will be double lat. Similarly, one more parameter we have, that is lon. So lat and lon is done. Now we just have to add it here. So we stop this thing here and also lat. Then again we just concatenate it here. Similarly with, okay, we did some mistake. They're not supposed to be like that. Yeah. We lat. Yeah. And also this app ID, it might change. So let's make it final. API key. So in API key, we can add this like that. Once this is done, let's restart the server and see what happens. So get weather slash lat equals okay, what was the latitude value? value was this, and lawn value was this. See if this works or not. It does not. What was the problem with that? Okay, I think we missed and here. Let's add it. Yeah, now let's save it again and see what happens. Yeah, so everything is working now. And let me tell you guys, this is not the good practice. You should not do like this. There is something called at path param, which is used for this. So, but for now, we will modify this later. But for now, let's keep it like this. So, basically, let me tell you the problem with this. So, since you are doing like this, you don't have the flexibility of moving lawn in the front and lat in the later, because that will create some problem because this is hard coded. Okay, so now our weather API service is up. Now let's create. So now let's create geocoded microservice in the next video. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.